Now, as usual, the solutions are in the slides. They won't be as useful now that you have videos for the solutions of these problems, but we worked a problem that we've worked before from chapter 8, and then we started on the this problem here, which is our common problem that we're going to work with each of the different decision rules. There's also an example here in the slides walking you through button by button how to use the cash flow environment and how to solve for NPV within the cash flow environment. Again, you should be able, hopefully are able to follow that in the video as well. Those of you that are using the graphing calculator, there are instructions in the homework, there's instructions on As You Learn, and there's of course all the many wonders of Google and YouTube to help you figure out the net present value and internal rate of return functions. They're in the apps functions. It's not like the time value of money solver where you can input everything in directly, but it's a function that you pull into the main screen on the calculator and enter in. It looks almost like an Excel function. So now we need to, now that we've worked a problem with net present value, it falls to us to evaluate it. Again, the net present value rule is the golden rule, so the answer to all of our evaluation questions are going to be yes. Does the NPV rule account for the time value of money? Of course. The time value of money is accounted for when we take the present value of the future cash flows, add them all together, and subtract the cost. Does the NPV rule account for the risk of the cash flows? And again, the answer is of course. The risk is accounted for when we assign the required rate of return for the project. And because we use the required rate of return as our discount rate, we take into account the risk of the cash flows. Does the NPV rule provide an indication about the increase in value? And the answer is this is exactly what the net present value rule does. It tells us exactly in dollar terms how much money, how much value is provided. This might even be one of the drawbacks of the NPV, which is that it's not always clear to us in terms of dollars what is the right amount of value to create. For instance, is $27,000 enough? Is $50,000 a good NPV? Is $1 million a good NPV? The answer to all of that is going to be depends on what the investment requires and what the risk is. Right? Remember that our net present value rule is very cut and dry. It says take the project if it's greater than 0. And that could mean a net present value of a single dollar. Based on the rule, we should take that kind of project. So we have to think more about this, and we'll talk more about this as we move on. But in the end, should we consider the net present value rule as our primary decision driver? And the answer is yes, as long as we feel comfortable with all of the assumptions that we made earlier, the assumptions about all of the different cash flows, the assumptions about the future of revenues and costs and taxes and interest and assets required and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As long as we feel comfortable with our assumption about risk, then the net present value rule is the best one. It gives us the best answer, and it provides us the most concrete indication of whether this is a valuable and good project. But if we don't feel comfortable with all those things, or if we don't feel like we have the necessary time, or maybe we don't feel like the project warrants that kind of investment in terms of our own investment, personal investment in solving for the net present value, then these other rules can come in handy. And particularly this next rule, what we call the payback period rule. The payback period rule is if anything, the easiest of the rules. And it's the most common sense rule that we have. The payback period rule says, how long does it take for the positive cash flows that a project or an investment generates to cover the initial cost? And that's it. It means the same thing in a colloquial sense. You might loan your friend $100 and ask them to pay you back. And the payback period on when you get paid back from your friend is exactly how long it takes you to give your friend to give you that $100 back. They might give it to you in $10 increments, $10 a month, and then it's going to take you 10 months of $10 a month to get your $100 back. They might do it all and just pay it all back to you the next week. Your payback period is a week. We have the same idea here for firms. Even though it's not getting paid back in the same sense as you loaning your money to your friend, the funds, the financing that a firm lines up to invest in a project does come from somewhere. And so there still does this underlying idea that we want to generate enough cash flows from these investments to cover the source of financing or the source of funds that we raise. And the payback period rule is very easy. It's a back of the envelope type of calculation. All we do is add the cash flows to the initial cost one by one and see how long it takes us to get to zero. And you'll see that when we work this next problem. Again, we'll use the same problem as we did initially, this common problem. You'll see that it's a very straightforward, it's very easy to interpret, it's very easy to use. It does have a few drawbacks though. And the biggest drawback here is right in the rule itself. Because the payback period rule is not like the NPV rule. The NPV rule has a very economically intuitive decision, which is that if it provides a positive present value, net present value, we should accept this project. It's a good one. It generates enough revenue to cover all its costs and to justify the risk. The payback period rule we don't have an economic intuition for the decision rule here. We're going to pick some arbitrary limit. And in this case, in this problem, we're just going to pick 2 years. If the project doesn't pay back in 2 years, we don't take it. So that means we're only given any given investment 2 years to generate enough cash flows to cover its cost. And that's not a long time in the world of finance and business. 2 years might not be enough to gain any traction, to communicate that this product is a valuable buy for customers and things like that. And so it has very limited uses because this rule can sometimes cause you to reject a good project. On the other hand, because it's so easy to do, it also has ardent following in the business world. And the biggest place that it tends to get used, and this is probably the second most used decision rule behind the net present value rule, the biggest place that it gets used is to decide on projects that have a very small initial investment. So at one point I had an Amazon team come in to talk to one of my classes at a previous university, and they came in to talk, they were the CFA team, so they were doing the financial analysis for Amazon projects, and we got to talking about what kind of decision rules they used and how they evaluated different projects, because it was right about this time in the semester. And one of the things they said was that they do use the payback period rule, but they use it for only small initial investments. And of course we couldn't get into hard numbers, they're not divulging that kind of thing, but you can imagine that for a company like Amazon, a project that requires an investment of say $10,000 is not a very significant one. Amazon makes billions and hundreds of billions a year. An investment of $10,000 just isn't enough to justify assigning a team of analysts to make projected cash flow statements and all that to run an NPV analysis. So there's some range where they don't find it valuable enough to put all the time and effort and work to make all the assumptions to do an NPV analysis, but they still might take the project on a payback basis. So that's where we see the biggest use here. Is it does have some value for projects that have limited cash investment requirement. It also has some uses because it biases us towards taking projects that pay off sooner rather than later. In other words, it biases us against, or maybe a better way to say it is that it causes us to take or to reject long-term projects. And if we're a small business or we have a limited amount of cash flow available to us, this might be a better rule for us than net present value, because it might allow us to recover the money, and then that will allow us to keep reinvesting the money. So let's jump to the problem.